When I started this podcast, one of the things that I said I was not going to do was discuss politics, especially since there's just a lot of rage baiting, a lot of negativity, and a lot of divisiveness involved when you bring politics and political views into a situation. But it's hard. There are political issues, though, that directly impact education, so it's tough to talk about one without mentioning the other. Our political climate has, in my opinion, done a good job brainwashing people, redefining and providing this semantic change or shift in what equity and inclusion means, at least for education. Rather than providing fair and equal access to learning opportunities and resources where every student receives what they need to be successful, people have been wrongly convinced that DEI has something to do with discrimination or something to do with promoting or advancing a group of people over another based on race or some other physical characteristic. So there's a huge misunderstanding about what DEI actually means, at least in an educational sense. And this is especially true for special education or education specialist programs and meeting the needs of students with disabilities. At this time, with cutting funding to DEI programs, this has a huge negative impact, especially on special education programs and instruction. So it's important that education specialists do what they can to support the students they serve. Welcome, everybody, to In the Teacher's Lounge. I'm Dr. Beasley, and here to talk about what equity and inclusion means to her in the classroom for extensive support needs students. My guest today is teacher Miss Stephanie Johnson. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hi.
So thank you for being here, Ms. Johnson. One of the first things I want to know, because I'm always looking to add to my playlist, who are you listening to these days? Do you have a playlist or a song that either motivates you, encourages you, represents where you are right now, maybe something to get you ready for the stressors that come with teaching?
Well, I don't know if you noticed, but my favorite artist is Kevin Gates. Not because of his music, just because of his motivation. Like the way he has evolved into such a he talks authentically about his journey and how he changed his life and started loving himself. So that's my favorite artist. Like I literally get in the car and turn him on every single day. Like there's not a day I go without listening to Kevin.
Right? I may need to check that out. So how long have you been teaching?
I have been in education for 8 years. I did 5 years as an aide. I did 2 years as a substitute teacher, and then last year was my first year teaching mod severe or extensive support needs.
Now, did you plan to go into teaching hoping to be an education specialist teacher teaching extensive support needs students, or did you just accept the first opportunity to the first job that opened up to you?
No, I actually did want to go in teaching students with extensive support needs. I was like always curious of them, like very curious. I remember like being in 5th grade, 4th and 5th grade, like they would leave early to go to lunch and they would walk past the room and I would be like curious, like, hey, where are they going? What they doing? Like they look different. And that curiosity just carried me. My mom was a SPED teacher, so I spent a lot of time in her classroom. My granddad was a professor at USC. Let me not mess it up.
Those are fighting words.
He's not with us no more, but yeah.
All right. So when I asked you to do this podcast, you said that a topic that was important to you was equity and inclusion. Why?
You know what? It's something that I'm really struggling with my SPED class. I just can't seem to find balance. I don't know.
Now, let me stop you for a second.
Go ahead.
When I say equity and inclusion, what does that mean to you? Why are you struggling with that?
To me, it means like creating an environment that is that meets everybody's needs, not just the gen ed students' needs and not just the SPED student needs. It meets everybody's needs, and everybody on the team is working towards meeting those needs, if that makes sense.
So equity and inclusion, and I'll add diversity for students with special needs, means teachers are intentional in creating an inclusive and equitable classroom environment where students are valued, they have access to learning and resources, they have the same opportunities to be successful, whatever that success may look like for them. And this includes a lot of different things. It means teachers are using different strategies for each student's learning needs. It could be assistive technologies, it could be headphones, quiet zones, it could be making the class sensory friendly, it could be flexible seating options using things like bean bags, exercise balls, standing desk, different types of visuals, charts, organizers. It could be something as simple as providing additional time to complete their work. It depends on the student's needs. So there's a lot of different approaches to addressing DEI in the classroom for extensive support needs students, or even mild to moderate. And I agree, all teachers should be familiar with how to create these positive environments where all their students have equal opportunity to learn and be successful. But I'll ask you, why is it important to bring in the general education teachers into the education specialist loop?
Because I feel like it's hard to bring the gen ed teachers into the team. I feel like they feel like equity and inclusion means more work for them. And like that's just the vibe that I get from them in the IEP meetings, like that it's for them.
A lot of people see these as two distinctly different types of teachers. So why do the gen ed teachers need to be brought into the education specialist team?
Because if okay, so I teach kinder. So if I have a student and I want to mainstream this student, I feel like this student has potential, like eventually the student could be in gen ed. I feel like I need to collaborate with the gen ed teacher to make sure that this student is getting his or her needs met when he's mainstreaming in her room.
Now, not necessarily coming to the defense of gen ed teachers, but I don't think for the most part they are trained to effectively meet the needs of students with extensive support needs or even mild to moderate needs for that matter. I think I took one class in my credential program on teaching students with special needs. So when I did have students placed into my classroom who did have special needs, it was a lot of work for me. I mean, I had to learn about not only their disabilities, what they could and couldn't do, their reading levels. I had to look through their IEPs. I had to communicate with other teachers, other support providers, ensuring that their needs were met. I also still had to challenge them on their level to learn and ensure that other students were providing this welcoming and understanding environment as well. What advice would you give a general education teacher who has students with special needs placed in their class?
One thing that I like to do, because I've had gen ed teachers express to me that, like, I don't even know what an IEP is. I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know what to do when your student comes to my room. So I take the IEP at a glance. It's the last portion of an IEP, and I take it to them and I do my best to explain it to them and give them tips and strategies on how they can work with this student. But to the gen ed teachers, I do want to say, like, have faith in what I'm telling you. Like, if I say that the student is capable of doing these things, trust and believe that I wouldn't send this student to your room if I didn't think that he or she would succeed, you know? 'Cause I do agree with what you said earlier. Like, gen ed is not for everybody. It's not for all of the sped kids. I don't agree with that. Um, but there are some that are very capable, you
So,
know?
what are some of the challenges related to equity and inclusion that you see today that have an impact on the students with special needs that you teach?
This past year, I had some really high functioning students, and a few of them were mainstreaming, and they would come back and they would tell me, like, Ms. Johnson, I didn't have access to ST Math. And I didn't know how to tell them, like, hey, you don't get ST Math because you're in the sped class. Like, I don't have access to that, or you guys don't get to use that program because you guys are in the sped class. And so
So, what do you do in that situation? I mean, what's somebody supposed to do when they don't have support or access to support programs?
I had to advocate. I had to put out an email, and then I got a response the next day, like, hey, we're working on it. And then I didn't hear anything back. And then I just so happened to go to a training, and I kind of got emotional. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I cried because I was in there and I didn't have access. Not only did not my students not have access to some of these programs, I didn't have access to some of these programs. And I got really upset because why am I here in this training and I don't have access to any of these programs? You guys are saying you guys are training me and all the other staff in here, but yet I don't have access to any of these programs. My students don't have access to any of these programs. So I got emotional, and then it kind of went around, and then like a day or so later, my students had access to all the programs, ST Math, Think Central, everything. They had access to everything. Yeah, but I had to not say get out of character, but like I was emotional. Like I was crying that day. I was upset.
Well, I think you did the right thing. And unfortunately, sometimes that's what it takes. So, what are some approaches that you use to address equity and inclusion in the classroom?
Well, I mean, I've been trained on how to do that through like the SPED program at CSUDH. So there's a lot of like planning, a lot of creating schedules, making routines, going over the rules every single day, um, making individualized plans for every single student.
Now, from being around other teachers and being in the classroom so far, is there anything new that you've learned? Any new strategies or new techniques that you use?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like since I was a sped aide for 5 years, I feel like I went into the classroom like really already knowing what to expect compared to like some other teachers that may have just went into sped just, trying it out. Or I feel like I went in there very confident, kind of knew what I was doing. Not to say that I didn't learn anything, um, but as far as like equity and inclusion, I don't feel like I really learned anything. I learned other stuff though. Yeah. Um I learned as a new teacher, I learned how to move around and how to find my own way and my own um it was hard in the beginning trying to figure out how I fit in with them. How did I fit in with the other teachers? And by the end of the school year, I kind of had figured out how I fit in with them and how to move around them. Because I did get labeled, and I was really struggling. Like, do I want to sit next to them during the staff meetings? Do I not want to sit next to them during the staff meetings? Like, do I want to say anything during these meetings? Do I not? And
This is your SPED department?
no, we actually don't have like a department. The district that I work for is really small. It's only 4 schools. It's
So,
like an elementary district. It's a small like Whittier school district. So it wasn't it at the school that I worked at, like it was only me and maybe three other sped teachers. And when we would go into staff meetings, like there was like this division. There was like all the gen ed teachers were over here, all the sped teachers were over there. And every time I would come in as the new teacher, all the sped teachers would be like, "Hey, come sit over here, come sit with us." And I was just like, I don't want to.
so do you think you've been labeled as that person who doesn't want to collaborate or doesn't want to work with anybody else?
I am labeled as that. Like she told my boss told me, she was like, it seems like you don't want to get to know anybody. And it was just like, it's not that I don't want to get to know anybody, is that some of the things that they were doing, like just because of the way that I look, I can't do those certain things, so I distance myself from that stuff. But I couldn't explain that to her because he doesn't look.
Thinking about the differences between teaching general ed classes and teaching students with special needs, do you think there are some misconceptions that the general public or even gen ed teachers might have about teaching students with special needs?
I definitely think like there's some misconceptions. I think gen ed teachers think that my students aren't capable, um, like mostly academically. Like I feel like they're not capable academically and socially, and that's not always true. Um, I had some students, like I said, that were very, very high functioning, and they knew they were in this. they knew they were in the mod severe class. And I feel like if you know you're in the mod severe class, then maybe you don't need to be here. You know, some of my students were looking at some of my other students and were like, why, Miss Johnson, why she do that? And I'm just like, because she's different. But then it was hard to explain to them because then they're in the same class. So I don't know, like, but I do think that gen ed teachers, but I also think that sped teachers are kind of confused about like what gen ed teachers do too. Like that's why I chose to sub for a little bit, because I wanted to see like both sides. And it was a really good experience. I learned a lot. But I did choose sped over gen ed.
One of the things that I used to think about education specialist teachers was that they really didn't do much work, because I thought their aides or their paraprofessionals did most of the work and supported all the students for them. I used to think that legally schools just needed to have a credentialed teacher in the class, even though the teacher didn't do much. Of course, I know differently now, but do you get that sense from other teachers?
I mean, I could see that. I could see why people would think that, but there's a lot of stuff that people don't see that we do. Like I do a lot of like individualized planning. So like I'm looking for stuff for just specifically one student sometimes. Sometimes I'm making schedules and token boards just for one student. And a lot of times, like I have to do that for last year, I had to do it for 13 students. Like I had to individualize every single thing. I had one student who wouldn't work unless I made like the worksheet like rainbow. So I literally had to cut everything and then I had to outline it with red, yellow, purple, green, whatever, whatever, so that he would pick which one. Like there's a lot that go into it. Like, yeah.
I mean, I agree. I mean, IEPs alone take up a lot of time. And I'm glad you mentioned all the stuff you do, because that gets to providing a supportive learning environment and addressing equity and inclusion in the classroom. Sometimes you have to do several different things for different students because, like you said, otherwise they just wouldn't learn. So, what are some other challenges that you have in providing this equity and inclusiveness for your students? I mean, what are some of the challenges to creating that positive learning environment that you experience? How do you do that?
When you ask me that question and you put it like that, like I guess I kind of do struggle with that because I'm not one of those like they have like this program at the school where the kids get bucks for like doing things that I feel like they should just be doing because that's how I was raised. Like you just said please and thank you and you opened the door and you helped. And so when it comes to like giving out those tickets and stuff, I don't really do that or like do my what they would say is like creating a positive learning environment. Like the most I do is like, say like good job and give out like stickers, but I'm not really for like all the rewarding you because you said thank you or you picked up this trash.
So, everybody shouldn't get a trophy, huh? I'm with you on that one.
No, no, not everybody shouldn't get a trophy. Like,
Now, thinking about all of your experience being an aide and teaching, what has been one of the most challenging things you've experienced or seen or even heard about in your experience?
I guess the most challenging thing I had to deal with was like um really trying to explain to like administrators about behavior when it came to or how the strategies that I use to manage behavior. Like I would have when I was an aide, I was a one-on-one, and I had this one student. He will always drop, and he would just stay there. He would just sit there all day, and the admin would be like, "How come he's not working? How come he's not doing anything?" And she's just standing there. She's not, trying to make him get up or X, Y, and Z, and trying to explain that to them was like so challenging, trying to get them to understand that like that there was really nothing that I could do but besides like wait it out. Like I had provided him all the choices. I had, and a lot of times I just felt like they were undermining my, my authority and just
This is an administrator that didn't know.
yeah. At this time it was an administrator. Yeah. And she said she had all this Fed experience and X, Y, and Z, but then she would question, insult my intelligence is what she would do. She would insult my intelligence. Like, she would, well, did you try this? Well, did you try that? Did you do this? And I'm like, yeah, I did all of that, and he still don't want to get up. So I'm just standing here. I'm just waiting. I'm just gonna wait it out. Just gonna
I
hope.
mean, did you do anything that eventually worked? And if you did, what was it?
Eventually, yeah. Eventually, we got a good foot. Like, honestly, I waited it out, and this one he was in pull-ups, so it got so hot that day that the diaper was burning him, and he got up and was like, "Let's go." And ever since then, he never sat down. Like I just waited it out. Like I didn't do nothing like specific. Sometimes I would keep like food or little treats, Starburst. He liked the Starburst a lot, so sometimes he would get up for that. He liked the little fidget spinner, so he would get up for that. But every day was different. Like I never knew what worked or what didn't work. Like every day I just had to try different stuff. Sometimes he would get up and sometimes he wouldn't.
Now, that could have had a huge negative response, but I'm glad it worked out. So, on the flip side, what has been one of the most rewarding experiences you've had?
Hmm. You know what? The most rewarding experience is when the parent tells you that they seen so many changes in their kid at home. It just warms my heart when I have a parent that tells me something like that or something along the lines. And they're so like grateful that they have somewhere to send their kids, and um, they know that their kids are with somebody that they can trust, and that is the most rewarding to me.
Eyes. And to me, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's some of the best recognition you can receive because the parents know their kids. They know their kids' behavior. They know their kids' ability. So when they see a change in their own kids and they realize it's a result of something you've done, that's what teaching's all about. You can't beat that.
I've had parents ask me like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, what do you do when he does this, or what do you do when he does that?" And I really appreciate them like coming to me and like asking me like, how can I fix this? How can we work at this at home? And how can I change this? Because when he's here with you, I see how you work, and he listens and he does, and it just warms my heart. Like I feel good driving home when when I've had a good conversation with parents.
Do you do anything deliberately to connect to your parents, or does it just kind of happen on an as needed basis, or maybe a natural or organic basis?
Um, I feel like I never do anything deliberately to connect with parents. I feel like I'm just a vibe. Like once we start talking and everything starts to just flow and get transparent, then I just open up to them and they just open up to me, and
You are a
yeah.
vibe. That's why I have you on the program.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't know. I feel like I've seen teachers like really, really try hard to like connect with parents and like send out newsletters and do this and do that and send out this and talk on Parent Square and X, Y, and Z, and I don't know. Like you said, it just happens organically, just naturally.
Now, is there anything you can think of that schools or districts should do to further support you in teaching students with extensive support needs?
I think just like training the gen ed teachers on um, how to work with STEM students. Um, but I hate to say that too because then it's just kind of like, okay, if we train them, then everybody could just be everywhere, like the sped kids could just be in gen ed and the gen ed kids could just be in sped, or so I don't know, but um
Okay, but that suggests that SPED teachers already know what they need to do, and you're suggesting that Gen Ed teachers need to do something that they're not necessarily required or trained to do. It's almost like pointing the finger or placing the blame somewhere else. Thinking about your role specifically, what are some gaps in what you do in which you think you can be further supported?
I feel like I don't know how they could help me with this, but I feel like I struggle to like I struggle socially with the other teachers. I don't know what the district could do for that, but I feel like I'm always coming in and I'm always trying and they're not, you know? I don't know.
I mean, do you like participating in icebreakers or those team building activities?
Yeah, and they don't do that.
I mean, for me, I think they can be a bit useless, a waste of time, but you're saying your school can probably benefit from something like that.
Yeah. I feel like I feel like if I don't know you, then or we haven't had an icebreaker or a conversation, like I'm not gonna work well with you because I don't really know you. I don't know nothing about you. Like I don't know your vibe. Like I don't know, you know? So it's hard for me to work with people that I haven't broke the ice with, if that makes sense.
I mean, it kind of makes sense. I think at the heart of it, a lot of people see the collaborative behavior or approach as something inauthentic, or you have to pretend to do something, be fake. I get it. I'm the same way.
Like I don't know if I could be this bubbly person that I am with you, you know? So I'm just gonna be quiet. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna let you say and let you talk and let you, you do it. And until we've had that icebreaker that I know that I could be transparent with you, then I don't really got nothing to say because I don't like being fake. Like I don't like being fake, if that makes sense.
Now, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to add? I mean, if you can give some advice to another teacher who's going into an extensive support needs class, what would you tell them?
Experience, I would tell them, go in the classroom every single day with an open mind, be willing to learn, be patient, um, be willing to do things that may seem a little unorthodox. Yeah, that's what I would tell them.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for being here, joining me. I
Thank
really do
you.
appreciate you taking the time out of your busy life, your busy schedule to do this with me. Hopefully, what we discussed could be inspirational or informative or helpful to someone somewhere. I do want to close by saying IDEA still is in effect. IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and this was passed in 1975, and then it was called the Education for All Handicapped Children Act. The name was changed to IDEA in 1990, and although it's been revised, the core purpose remains the same. IDEA ensures that children with disabilities have access to free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment, meaning that students should receive support and instruction based on their individual learning needs, which is to contribute to their learning, to help them thrive, not only in the classroom, but in their families, in their social lives, in their community, just in society. And this is what DEI means for students with disabilities. Before IDEA, students were denied equal access to education, resources, and opportunities to learn. And I mentioned earlier that some groups have done a good job in convincing people that DEI means something that it doesn't. But teachers know this has nothing to do with discriminating against anyone. It has nothing to do with preferential treatment because of race or ethnicity. It has nothing to do with meeting any type of quota or promoting someone over someone else who doesn't have the qualifications to be there. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has everything to do with fair and equal access. It's about making necessary accommodations for all students, especially those with disabilities, so they have the same opportunities to learn, to grow, and thrive as everyone else. And so I think it's important for teachers to start sharing their stories, the positive experiences, the effective instructional techniques, how they address equity and inclusion in their classroom, and the impact that that has on the lives, the learning, and the development of all students, those in the general education setting and those with special needs. And I think that that positive impact using DEI practices helps to improve the lives of the students that we serve.